Hi there, my name is Matt Jacobs and this is my Lab 5 for Physics 1. So in this lab we have the collision of one ball, which is initially at motion, hitting another ball, which is initially at rest, on a video using tracker. In this experiment, I'm trying to find if the collision between the balls is elastic or inelastic. So some physics principles that we're going to use in this lab are Newton's second law, which is F is equal to ma, the conservation of momentum, which states that momentum, which is equal to mass times velocity, is conserved throughout a collision. Conservation of kinetic energy, which states that the energy from the beginning of the collision should be the same as the energy after the collision. Maximally inelastic collisions, which is when some two things collide and they stick together. An inelastic collision, which is when the kinetic energy of a collision before the kinetic energy of the objects before the collision is not equal to the kinetic energy of the objects after the collision. And then an elastic collision where kinetic energy is conserved throughout the collision, and then the point particle system. So the formulas that we're going to use throughout this experiment are the velocity update formula, which is Vf is equal to Vi plus the average force times the change in time divided by the mass. The position update formula, which is final position is equal to initial position plus velocity average times the change in time. Kinetic energy, which is 1/2 mv squared. Momentum, which is equal to mass times velocity. Conservation of momentum, which, as I stated earlier, states that the initial momentum of the collision of the objects in the collision is equal to the final momentum of the objects in the collision. And the conservation of kinetic energy, which should state that the energy before is equal to the kinetic energy before the collision is equal to the kinetic energy after. So here's a video of the collision. As you can see, one ball starts in motion, hits the other ball, and they both go off in motion in their separate ways. That's pretty much all there is to it. Not super complicated, but yeah, as you can see, the balls collide and then they go off in their own separate directions. So, as you can see, here's the graphs I made of position versus time for ball 1 being the one that started in motion. And here's the x position and the y position. And then here's ball 2, which is, as you can see, x position, y position. The observed motion being what tracker has, and the predicted motion being what I found using the velocity update formulas or the position update formulas. And so my results from this show that the final momentum is equal to this. The initial momentum is equal to this for the ball. And the kinetic energy is actually changed, as here's the initial kinetic energy, here's the final kinetic energy. As you can see, there's a lot of 52.3% of the kinetic energy was actually lost. So, because of that, we can conclude that this collision is an inelastic collision because the kinetic energy was not conserved between the two balls during the collision.